The Great Gatsby, Chapter 9. 2 years later, I still remember that day, the night, and the next day as a blur. Many police officers, photographers, and newspaper reporters came in and out of Gatsby's house. A rope was put across the front gate, and a policeman stood there to keep people away. But some boys found out they could get in through my yard. There were always a few boys standing around the pool, staring with open mouths. One man, maybe a detective, looked at Wilson's body and said he was a madman. He sounded sure, and because of that, the newspapers used the same word the next morning. Most of the newspaper stories were crazy. They were full of strange and wrong details. When Michaela spoke at the inquest and told the police that Wilson thought his wife was cheating on him, I thought the full story would be told in a funny and cruel way. But Catherine, Myrtle's sister, didn't say anything. She showed strength and looked straight at the coroner. She said clearly that her sister never met Gatsby, that she was happy with her husband, and that she never did anything wrong. She really believed it and cried into her handkerchief, as if the idea was too painful for her. So the police said Wilson was just mad from sadness, and the case was closed. But for me, that part of the story didn't seem important. I felt close to Gatsby, and I was the only one. From the moment I called the town of West Egg to tell them what happened, everyone came to me with questions about Gatsby. At first, I was surprised. But as Gatsby lay still in his house, not moving, breathing, or speaking, hour after hour, I realized I was the only one who truly cared. No one else was really interested. I felt responsible. I called Daisy about 30 minutes after we found Gatsby. I didn't even think about it. I just did it. But she and Tom had already left earlier that afternoon. Did they leave an address? No. Did they say when they'd come back? No. Do you know where they went? How I can contact them? I don't know. I really can't say. I wanted to find someone for Gatsby. I wanted to go into the room and say, "Don't worry, Gatsby. I'll find someone for you. Trust me. I'll get someone." I tried to call Meyer Wolfsheim, but his name wasn't in the phone book. The butler gave me his office address on Broadway. I called the operator to get the number, but it was after 5 p.m. and no one answered the phone. "Can you call again? I already called 3 times. It's really important." "Sorry, but I think no one is there." I went back to the living room. For a second, I thought all the police and reporters were just visitors. But they weren't. They looked at Gatsby's body and were shocked. Still, I could hear Gatsby's voice in my mind. "Listen, old sport, you have to find someone for me. You have to try hard. I can't go through this alone." Someone started asking me questions, but I walked away and went upstairs. I looked through Gatsby's desk. He never told me clearly if his parents were dead. But I found nothing, only a photo of Dan Cody, an old memory of Gatsby's wild past, staring down from the wall. The next morning, I sent the butler to New York with a letter for Wolfsheim. I asked for information and begged him to come on the next train. When I wrote the letter, I thought it wasn't really needed. I believed he would come after seeing the news. I also believed Daisy would send a message before noon. But neither of them did. No one came. Only more police, photographers, and reporters. Later, the butler brought back a letter from Wolfsheim. After reading it, I started to feel angry. I felt that Gatsby and I were standing together against everyone else. Letter from Meyer Wolfsheim. Dear Mr. Carraway, this is one of the biggest shocks of my life. I can't believe it's true. What that man did was crazy and should make us all think. I can't come now because I'm very busy with important work. I also don't want to be involved in this matter right now. If I can help later, please send me a letter through Edgar. I feel lost and very upset after hearing this. Yours truly, Meyer Wolfsheim. Note written quickly at the bottom. Let me know about the funeral, etc. I don't know his family at all. That afternoon, the phone rang. The operator said there was a call from Chicago. I thought it must be Daisy at last. But when the call came through, it was a man's voice, quiet and far away. This is Slagle speaking. Yes, I said. I didn't know the name. Terrible news, isn't it? Did you get my message? There haven't been any messages. Young Park is in trouble, he said quickly. The police caught him when he tried to give the bonds to someone. They had just gotten a warning from New York 5 minutes earlier. Can you believe that? Small towns are full of surprises. Hello. I interrupted. Listen, this isn't Mr. Gatsby. Gatsby is dead. There was a long silence. Then the man gave a surprised sound, and the line went dead. On the third day, a telegram arrived. It was signed Henry C. Gats, from a town in Minnesota. He said he was coming right away and asked us to wait with the funeral until he arrived. He was Gatsby's father. He was an old, quiet man. He looked very lost and confused. He wore a long, cheap coat, even though it was warm. His eyes were full of tears, and when I helped him with his bag and umbrella, he kept pulling at his thin gray beard. It was hard for me to take off his coat because he was so upset. He was about to faint, so I brought him into the music room and helped him sit down. I asked someone to bring food, but he didn't eat. His hand shook so badly that he spilled his glass of milk. I saw it in the Chicago newspaper, he said. It was all there. I left right away. I didn't know how to contact you, I said. He looked around the room, but didn't seem to see anything. The man who did it was crazy, he said. He must have been. Would you like some coffee? I asked. I don't want anything. I'm okay now, Mr. Caraway. Well, I'm okay now. Where's Jimmy? I took him to the room where Gatsby's body was. Some young boys were standing at the front steps, trying to look inside. When I told them Gatsby's father had arrived, they left slowly. After a while, Mr. Gatz came out. His mouth was open a little, his face was red, and a few slow tears came from his eyes. He was old enough that death didn't surprise him much anymore. But when he finally looked around and saw the big and beautiful house, his sadness mixed with pride. I helped him go to a bedroom upstairs. While he took off his coat and vest, I told him we had waited for him to plan everything. I didn't know what you'd want, Mr. Gatsby. My name is Gatz, he said. Mr. Gatz, I thought maybe you'd want to take the body back west. He shook his head. Jimmy liked it better here in the east. He became successful here. Were you his friend, mister? We were very close, I said. He had a great future, Mr. Gatz said. He was young, but very smart. He touched his head. I nodded. If he had lived, he would have been a great man. Like James J. Hill. He could have helped build this country. That's true, I said, feeling uncomfortable. He tried to pull the cover off the bed and lay down stiffly. In a moment, he was asleep. That night, someone called. The man sounded scared. He wouldn't say who he was until I gave my name. This is Mr. Caraway, I said. Oh, he sounded calmer. This is Klipspringer. I felt relieved. Maybe he would come to the funeral. I didn't want reporters or curious people to show up, so I had been calling people Gatsby knew. But it was hard to find them. The funeral is tomorrow, I said. 3 o'clock at Gatsby's house. Please tell anyone else who might care. Oh, I will, he said quickly. But I probably won't see anyone. His voice made me feel unsure. You'll be there, right? Well, I'll try. The reason I called is, wait, I said. Are you coming to the funeral? Well, the truth is, I'm staying with some people in Greenwich. They expect me to be with them tomorrow. There's a sort of picnic. But I'll try my best to leave. I made a loud noise, and I think he heard it. He quickly added, what I really called about was, I left some shoes there. Tennis shoes. Could you ask the butler to send them to me? I really need them. He started giving me his address, but I didn't listen. I hung up the phone. After that, I felt sorry for Gatsby. One man I called even said Gatsby got what he deserved. But that was my fault. I shouldn't have called him. He used to speak badly about Gatsby behind his back, especially when he was drinking Gatsby's alcohol. I should have known better. On the morning of the funeral, I went to New York to visit Meyer Wolfsheim. I couldn't contact him in any other way. The elevator boy told me which office to go to. The door said the Swastika Holding Company. At first, the office looked empty. I called out hello a few times, but no one answered. Then I heard people arguing behind a wall. A beautiful woman came to the door. She looked at me with cold, angry eyes. "There's no one here," she said. "Mr. Wolfsheim went to Chicago." That didn't seem true. Someone inside had just started whistling a song. "Please tell him Mr. Carraway wants to see him." "I can't bring him back from Chicago, can I?" Just then, I heard a man's voice from behind the door. It was clearly Wolfsheim. He called out, "Stella, leave your name at the desk," she said quickly. "I'll tell him when he comes back." "But I know he's here," I said. She stepped closer to me and started moving her hands up and down her hips. "You young men always try to force your way in," she said angrily. "We're tired of it." I said he's in Chicago. I said Gatsby's name. "Oh," she said, and looked at me again. "What did you say your name was?" Then she disappeared. A few moments later, Meyer Wolfsheim came to the door. He looked serious and held out both hands. He brought me into his office and said it was a sad time for everyone. He offered me a cigar. "I remember when I first met Gatsby," he said. "He was a young soldier, full of medals from the war. He didn't have money to buy regular clothes, so he kept wearing his army uniform. The first time I saw him, he came into Weinbrenner's pool room and asked for a job. He hadn't eaten for days. I said, 'Come have lunch with me.' He ate over $4 of food in 30 minutes. "Did you help him start his business?" I asked. "Start him? I made him," Wolfsheim said. "Oh, he came from nothing. I saw he was a good-looking, polite young man. When he told me he went to Oxford, I knew he could be useful. I helped him join the American Legion. He did some work for a client of mine in Albany. We were always together, very close." He held up two fingers to show how close they were. I wondered if their business included the 1919 World Series cheating. "Now he's dead," I said. "You were his best friend. I know you'll want to come to the funeral today." "I want to come," he said. "Then come." His nose moved slightly, and his eyes filled with tears. But he shook his head. I can't. I can't get involved. There's nothing to be involved in. It's over. When someone gets killed, I don't like to be part of it. I stay away. When I was young, it was different. If a friend died, I stayed with him to the end. That may sound emotional, but it's how I am, until the very end. I could see he had made up his mind not to come, so I stood up. "Did you go to college?" he asked suddenly. For a second, I thought he might offer me a business deal. But he just shook my hand and said, "We should show love for our friends when they are alive, not just after they die. That's my rule. After someone dies, I leave it alone." When I left his office, the sky was dark and it started to rain. Back in West Egg, I changed my clothes and went to Gatsby's house. Mr. Gatsby's father, was walking around the hall, excited. He was proud of his son and everything his son owned. Now he had something to show me. "Jimmy sent me this picture," he said. His fingers were shaking as he pulled out his wallet. "Look." It was a photo of Gatsby's house. The edges were old and dirty. He pointed out every little thing in the photo, looking for my approval. "Jimmy sent it to me. I think it's a beautiful picture. The house looks great, right?" "Yes, very nice." "Had you seen him recently?" "He visited me 2 years ago. He even bought me the house I live in now. Of course, we were upset when he left home, but I understand now. He knew he was going to be successful. And after he made money, he was very kind to me. He didn't want to put the photo away." He looked at it for another minute, then slowly put it back in his wallet. After that, he took out a small old book. The book was called Hopalong Cassidy. Look, this was one of his books when he was a boy. It shows you what kind of person he was. He opened it to the back cover and turned it so I could see. On the last page, Gatsby had written a schedule and some rules for himself. It was dated September 12th, 1906. Daily schedule. Get up, 6 a.m. Exercise, 6:15 to 6:30. Study science, 7:15 to 8:15. Work, 8:30 to 4:30. Sports, 4:30 to 5 o'clock. Practice speaking and confidence, 5 to 6 o'clock. Study inventions, 7 to 9 o'clock. Personal rules. Don't waste time at shafters or name unclear. No smoking or chewing. Take a bath every other day. Read one helpful book or magazine each week. Save $5, $3 was written later, each week. Be kinder to parents. I found this by accident, said Mr. Gatz. It shows you what kind of boy he was. Yes, it really does. Jimmy wanted to be someone important. He always made plans like this. See what he wrote about improving his mind. He cared a lot about learning. One time he told me I ate like a pig, and I hit him for it. He didn't want to close the book. He read each thing out loud and looked at me hopefully. I think he wanted me to copy the list for myself. A little before 3 o'clock, the Lutheran minister came from Flushing. I started looking out the windows to see if other cars were coming. Gatsby's father did the same. Time passed. The servants stood in the hall, waiting quietly. Mr. Gats's eyes blinked nervously. He talked about the rain with worry. The minister looked at his watch many times. I asked him to wait for half an hour. But no one came. At about 5 o'clock, 3 cars arrived at the cemetery. It was raining lightly. The first car was a black hearse, wet and dark. Then came the limousine with Mr. Gatz, the minister, and me. Later, 4 or 5 servants and the postman from West Egg came in Gatsby's station wagon. They were all soaked. When we walked through the cemetery gate, I heard a car stop. Someone was running after us through the wet ground. I looked back. It was the man with owl-eyed glasses. I had seen him once before. He was amazed by Gatsby's books in the library 3 months ago. I didn't know how he found out about the funeral or Gatsby's name. Rain fell on his thick glasses. He took them off and wiped them. We were covering Gatsby's grave with a canvas. I tried to think about Gatsby for a moment, but he already seemed far away. I only remembered that Daisy hadn't sent a message or flowers. I heard someone quietly say, "Blessed are the dead that the rain falls on." Then the owl-eyed man said loudly, "Amen to that." We quickly walked back to the cars in the rain. Owl Eyes spoke to me at the gate. "I couldn't get into the house," he said. Neither could anyone else. "Go on," he started. "My God, hundreds of people used to go there." He took off his glasses and wiped them again, inside and out. "The poor son of a bitch," he said. One clear memory I have is from coming home to the West from school. At Christmas, people who traveled farther than Chicago met in the old Union Street station. It was 6 o'clock in the evening, cold and dark. Some Chicago friends were already busy with their own Christmas fun. We said quick goodbyes. I remember the girls' fur coats from fancy schools. I remember the cold air and our breath. Hands waved in the air as we saw old friends. We talked about parties. Are you going to the Ordways? The Herseys? The Schultzes? We held our green tickets tight in our gloved hands. The yellow trains of the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad looked bright and happy by the gate, like Christmas itself. When the train started, the real snow began to fall outside. It sparkled by the windows. Small Wisconsin stations passed by. The cold air had a sharp, fresh feeling. We breathed deeply as we walked back from dinner through cold halls. For one strange hour, we felt very close to this country. Then, slowly, we became just like everyone else again. That is my Middle West, not the farms or small towns, but the exciting trains of my youth. The street lamps, sleigh bells in the dark, and holly wreath shadows on the snow. I am part of that place. I feel serious because of those long winters. I am proud because I grew up in the Caraway house, where families live for many years and houses keep their names. Now I see this story is really about the West. Tom and Gatsby, Daisy and Jordan, and I, we are all from the West. Maybe that's why we didn't fit well in the East. Even when the East excited me the most, even when I saw it was better than the boring, slow towns beyond Ohio, it still seemed strange. I see it like a painting by El Greco. In front, for serious men in suits carry a stretcher with a drunk woman in a white evening dress. Her hand hangs over the side, shining with jewels. The men stop at the wrong house. No one knows the woman's name, and no one cares. After Gatsby died, the East felt strange and sad to me. It was hard to see it clearly. When the cold wind blew dry leaves and wet clothes on the line, I decided to go back home. Before I left, there was one difficult thing I had to do. Maybe it was better to leave it alone, but I wanted to finish everything properly. I met Jordan Baker and talked with her about what happened between us and what happened to me after. She sat very still in a big chair and listened. She wore clothes to play golf. I thought she looked like a perfect picture, her chin up, her hair the color of autumn leaves, and her face the same brown color as the glove on her knee. When I finished talking, she told me she was engaged to another man. I did not really believe her, but I acted surprised. For a moment, I wondered if I was wrong about her. Then I thought quickly again and stood up to say goodbye. Still, you did leave me, Jordan said suddenly. You left me on the phone. I don't care about you now, but it was new to me. I felt a little dizzy for a while. We shook hands. Oh, do you remember? She added. We once talked about driving a car. Not really, I said. You said a bad driver is safe only until she meets another bad driver. Well, I met another bad driver. I was careless to think wrong about you. I thought you were honest and straight. I thought it was your secret pride. I'm 30, I said. I'm too old to lie to myself and call it honor. She said nothing. I was angry, a little in love with her, and very sorry. I turned away. One afternoon in late October, I saw Tom Buchanan walking ahead of me on Fifth Avenue. He walked quickly, moving his head and hands like he was ready to fight. When I slowed to not pass him, he stopped and looked at a jewelry store window. Then he saw me and came back, holding out his hand. What's wrong, Nick? Don't you want to shake my hand? Yes. You know what I think of you. You're crazy, Nick, he said fast. Crazy as hell. I don't know what's wrong with you. Tom, I asked, what did you say to Wilson that day? He looked at me without saying anything. I knew I was right about those missing hours. I started to walk away, but he stepped after me and grabbed my arm. I told him the truth, he said. Wilson came to the door while we were leaving. I sent word that we weren't home, but he tried to come upstairs. He was crazy enough to kill me if I hadn't told him who owned the car. His hand was on a gun all the time he was in the house. He stopped, angry. So what if I told him? That man deserved it. He tricked you, like he tricked Daisy, but he was tough. He ran over Myrtle like she was a dog and never stopped the car. I had no answer, except to know that was not true. If you think I didn't suffer too, look, he said. When I went to give up the flat and saw that box of dog biscuits on the sideboard, I sat down and cried like a baby. It was awful. I could not forgive him or like him. But I saw that in his mind, what he did was right. Everything was careless and confused. Tom and Daisy were careless people. They broke things and hurt people, then went back to their money or their carelessness. They let others clean their mess. I shook his hand. It seemed silly not to. Suddenly, I felt like I was talking to a child. Then he went into the jewelry store to buy a pearl necklace, or maybe just cufflinks, freeing me forever from my small town feeling. Gatsby's house was still empty when I left. The grass on his lawn was as long as mine. One taxi driver never took a passenger past Gatsby's gate without stopping and looking inside. Maybe he was the one who drove Daisy and Gatsby to East Egg the night of the accident. Maybe he told his own story about it. I didn't want to hear, and I avoided him at the train station. I spent my Saturday nights in New York because I could still hear the music and laughter from Gatsby's parties. I could hear it faintly from his garden and the cars going up and down his driveway. One night, I heard a real car stop at his steps, but I did not check. It was probably a last guest who didn't know the party was over. On my last night, with my bags packed and my car sold, I looked at Gatsby's big, strange house once more. On the white steps, some boy had written a bad word with a brick. I erased it with my shoe. Then I went down to the beach and lay on the sand. Most big houses by the shore were closed. There were almost no lights, except a small, moving light from a ferry boat across the water. As the moon rose, the useless houses seemed to disappear. Then I saw the old island that once shone for the first Dutch sailors, a fresh, green part of the new world. The trees that stood before Gatsby's house once whispered about the greatest human dreams. For a short magical time, people must have held their breath, looking at this land, feeling wonder they did not understand or want. It was the last time in history they faced something as great as their hope. As I sat there thinking about the old, unknown world, I remembered Gatsby's wonder when he first saw the green light at the end of Daisy's dock. He had come a long way to his blue lawn. His dream must have seemed so close that he could almost hold it. But he did not know the dream was already behind him, far away in the dark fields beyond the city. Gatsby believed in the green light, in the great future that moves farther away every year. We did not get it then, but that does not matter. Tomorrow we will run faster and reach farther. And one fine morning. So we keep moving forward, like boats fighting the current, always pushed back into the past.